Do you know the difference between a tornado and a divorce in the South? You don't. Either way, someone loses a trailer. Robin Williams. I studied forensic science and have a PhD in molecular biology. Early in my career, I worked in an FBI lab and then worked as a pathologist at a major hospital for several years. However, I got tired of working for the man, and when I turned 40, I opened my own store specializing in DNA analysis. RHT Labs, Robert Henry Thomas, my full name, provides DNA analysis services for government agencies, businesses, attorneys, and individuals. I got my love of science from my mom and my business skills from my dad. I am not insanely wealthy, but I have opened 3 labs in a major Midwestern city and am thriving. My wife, Melissa, Liz for short, was my college sweetheart. We met in the middle of our sophomore year, and within weeks we were exclusive. She was majoring in biology and minoring in secondary education. We married 6 months after college, during a break at the end of my first semester in graduate school. She taught at a local high school. We were madly in love with each other, ate more ramen noodles than we should have, and everything was off to a great start. 4 years into our marriage, Tracy Lynn came along. 2 years later, she was joined by RHT2, or Hank as we called him. Liz loved being a mom, but she also continued teaching while working in our school district. Eventually, she returned to the classroom full-time when Tracy was in 3rd grade and Hank was in 1st grade. The kids were 12 and 10 when I moved to the private sector. The first year or so was difficult. Long hours, overstaffing until I found the right combination of people who liked hard work and good pay and benefits. They quickly realized they worked for an owner who was stricter on himself than the rest of us. Now, at 47, marriage, kids, work, and our cottage on the lake take up most of my world. We bought our lake house about 10 years ago. It was pretty run down, so we bought it at a bargain price and didn't mind working together to fix it up. When school was out for the summer, Liz and the kids spent 85% of their time there. I reduced my work week to 4 days in June, July, and August so I could enjoy long weekends with our loving team. Over the years, our marriage has had its ups and downs, mostly ups. But like any couple, we fight from time to time. We can both be stubborn but rarely get mad at each other for longer than a couple hours. Neither of us likes to be at odds with the other, so we are quick to admit where we were wrong and make things right. No marriage is perfect, but I wouldn't trade mine for anything. Until recently. Tracy was a sophomore in college, which meant that Hank would be going off to school in the fall. We were all looking forward to the summer lake house because it was clear that the time with the 4 of us wouldn't last long. Tracy had a boyfriend, and while neither Liz nor I thought he was the one, we knew it wouldn't be more than a few years before she brought that special someone home for us to meet. We were excited to expand our family when that happened, but also enjoyed the time we still had with our small, close-knit team. It was late spring, and Liz had spent the last 2 weekends at the lake getting the house ready for the opening. This has been her ritual for the entire time we've owned the house. She had free time, which meant she paid attention to getting the cottage just the way she liked it, while still having a couple of evenings to sit and read and drink wine without interference from her husband or kids. The 3 of us developed our own traditions at home, which included early-season baseball games in St. Louis or Chicago. Each of the last Sunday nights, when Liz returned from a weekend of what she called prepping and cleaning, she seemed a little out of sorts. I couldn't understand a thing, but my wife was clearly not in the mood. On the second Sunday, when she returned in the same mood, I asked her if everything was okay. She lashed out at me, which rarely happens to her, and left the room in annoyance. WTF, thought I, and for the next few hours I paid no attention to her. Before we went to bed for the night, she apologized for her behavior. "I'm sorry, Henry, I shouldn't have been harsh with you earlier. Please forgive my rude behavior." "Of course, Liz," I replied. "I'm sorry if I annoyed you in any way. I was just worried that you didn't quite sound like yourself." "I'm fine, Henry," she replied without looking at me. "I guess I'm just a little tired from all that work at the lake." "Okay, honey, how about a back scratch?" "That would be perfect," she purred. Liz loves having her back scratched. After a few minutes of very platonic stroking of her back, my hands began to wander. We are still very physically close and active. Sometimes the kids come down for breakfast and catch us smiling from ear to ear, holding hands. More often than not, Tracy tells us TMI or Please go to your room and don't touch us. Hank only blushes slightly and giggles. Usually when she gets home after a trip to the lake, she's in a good mood. Tonight, when I started the initiative, she didn't even roll over. She just took a deep breath and said, "Thanks for the scratch, babe, but not tonight, okay?" I wasn't shocked. I've been turned down plenty of times, just like any normal husband. But with our recent schedule, it had been over a week, and it surprised me. Unfortunately, pretty soon I would find out what this was all about. If you live in the Midwest, you are constantly threatened by tornadoes. Like earthquakes in California or hurricanes on the East Coast, people in our part of the country are well aware of tornadoes and what they can do. In the spring, it's never a question of if, it's always a question of when and where. This year, it was our turn. A Class 3 tornado has wind speeds up to 165 miles per hour, and a Class 5 tornado can reach speeds over 200 miles per hour. On Monday night, after Liz returned from her second cleanup, a Class 3 tornado passed within a half-mile of our house. I immediately called our lake neighbors Eric and Bev Parson. Their house was about 100 yards from ours. They were retired and lived on the lake year-round. Eric answered on the second call. "Henry, a hell of a storm just passed through here." "Are you and Bev okay, Eric? Is there anything I can help you with?" "We're fine, Henry. Thanks for asking. There's no damage around us. I took a quick look around your house. There's a couple broken windows and a lot of branches and debris scattered around the property, but nothing major. The rain has let up, so I'll get your windows boarded up in the morning. There's no need to rush out here tonight." "Thanks, Eric. I'm glad you're all right. I'll be down first thing in the morning. I'll bring a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts as a token of my appreciation." "Save your money, Henry. Bev will just find the damn things and make me throw them away. She can smell food she thinks is unhealthy a mile away. It drives me crazy sometimes." "Well, maybe I'll just bring a couple and keep them at my place. I can call when I get there and ask for help." "Well, that might work, Henry. Good night. See you in the morning." I informed the office that I would be gone for a couple days. Truth be told, they had time to do more without me. My assistant Shelby told me that she wasn't sure how they would manage without me, but they would try. Liz offered to leave and help me, but when I explained that we had avoided most of the serious damage, she decided to stay home and work. We also realized that leaving an 18-year-old high school senior alone for a couple of days would cause an accident to look for a place to happen. I headed to the lake and spent the next couple of days assembling and organizing the installation of 3 new windows. Eric came over and helped me with some stuff, and I helped him. If there was any Krispy Kreme consumption there, my lips were sealed. It was Wednesday, and all the major cleanup work had been completed. Liz had put the trash can by the mailbox before she left on Sunday, since trash pickup at the lake was on Tuesday. Because of the storm, all of its contents were scattered around the yard. The dumpster was blown all over the street. After rolling it back up, I began the final task of filling it with what had scattered across the lawn. I was just about finished when I noticed something that looked like a Ziploc bag at the far end of the yard. Upon closer inspection, it actually turned out to be a clear plastic bag. There was nothing strange about it, but its contents appeared to be discarded clothing. I picked it up and saw that it appeared to be one of Liz's swimsuits, a blouse, and panties. When I opened it, a combination of odors hit my nostrils. Human sweat and other bodily secretions had been tightly covered for at least 3 days. Don't forget, I'm in the DNA business. I recognized the smell, familiar from the scents in our labs. I lifted my blouse. 4 of the 6 buttons were missing. Both the swimsuit and panties seemed to show signs of sex. I felt my lunch squeeze back down my throat as I struggled to contain it. I'd lost. How could this have happened? Liz and I hadn't been at the lake together since Thanksgiving weekend, and from what I remembered, it was a big family weekend, so sex wasn't on the menu. I knew enough to know that the contents of the bag hadn't been there more than a few days. An almost 25-year marriage built on love and commitment had suddenly shaken at its core. I carried my newfound belongings to our terrace, sat down, and forced myself to think. Obviously, Liz must have known I wouldn't be at the lake until Tuesday morning when the garbage truck arrived. There was no need to hide anything. It would all be gone long before my first spring visit anyway. But who? Our house was far enough away from Parsons that it was possible to come and go unnoticed. I also remembered how I thought Liz seemed out of sorts when she returned from both weekends. Was it because she was coming home after being with him? How long had she been unfaithful? Did he live here, or had they just met here? Someone she worked with? A neighbor? Was he clean? Could I have an STD? My head was spinning and I was having trouble breathing. I fought for composure, but it was difficult. I was in no condition to go home. After an hour, I had an immediate solution. I called Liz and told her there was something to do here and I had already had a few beers. It would be best if I stayed the night and headed into town early in the morning. The lake house was only an hour away, so I could get up at 6 and be at the office by my usual 8 in the morning. "I'm glad the damage isn't too great," Liz said when I informed her of my plan. "I only wish you were coming home today. I wanted to make up for my lack of enthusiasm on Sunday." "I'm sorry, Liz, but I'll see you tomorrow." "Bye, honey. I love you." "Good night, Liz." I couldn't bring myself to tell her I loved her. I had a couple or 5 glasses of bourbon and eventually fell into a heavy sleep until 5 in the morning. I made a few decisions on the way home and also made a few phone calls. I would be doing the DNA analysis myself, so I needed to head straight to the lab and get started before anyone else arrived. Second, I called my attorney, Tom Kincaid, and brought him up to speed. Finally, I called a friend I had worked with back in the FBI who had also moved into the private sector and told him what I needed. By the end of the day, I had 2 of the 3 things ready. Tom and I met for a couple hours over lunch. The bad news, no matter what, she will get 50% of everything in the divorce. Even if the kids grow up and maybe decide to live with me, financially she'll be just fine. How twisted our system is, I thought. You betray your vows to the people you profess to love, and you get financially rewarded for it. Second, my friend managed to pull some strings and install state-of-the-art, undetectable surveillance equipment at the lake house. Not that it would help much in the divorce, but I needed proof of her infidelity. There was no way I was going to let her play the victim in front of our friends and family. I would use all social media if I had to. Liz will probably get back on her feet financially, but she will not leave this marriage with her reputation intact. My third project was the DNA identification process. Obviously, Liz's results were easy to determine, but finding an unknown person required more time. With any luck, it wouldn't be until after work tomorrow at the earliest. I arrived home, hugged the kids, and gave Liz a brief peck on the cheek. Everyone was interested in my last 24 hours. I took pictures on my phone, so everyone gathered around and peered over my shoulder while I told the story. Even with all her duplicity, it was clear that Liz cared about our second home. She had as many amazing memories as the rest of us, and we had been together for a long time. I continued to speak in a steady voice, trying to keep my composure. She was so close, looking at my phone, her scent filled my nostrils. Usually it would start to turn me on sooner or later. Today, however, her scent was lingering. I purposely took a picture of the trash scattered around the yard. Before going back, I edited the shot and made the Ziploc bag a little bigger in the frame. Even though I was in pain, I decided a little mind game wouldn't hurt. "Look at all this garbage. You wouldn't believe some of the stuff I had to reassemble and repackage," I told her, pausing a second or two longer in this photo. I felt Liz tense up for a moment. Later that night, as we climbed into bed, Liz reached for me. I think she felt me tense up as she threw her arm over me and pulled me close. "Are you okay, Henry? What's wrong, honey?" Usually I turned around and we were talking almost nose to nose. Today, however, I was just facing her. "Just tired," I lied. "All the work at the lake house, then a couple extra drinks last night, an early morning and a long day." "Thanks for taking care of all that, Henry. I know it's been really hard. I probably should have come with you and helped." "It's okay, Liz. But I think you should come back next week when you get out of school on Monday and make sure the windows are put in properly and everything is up to your standards. I think we'll all feel better knowing you're there and that you're looking at things from the perspective of our family's best interests." "Of course, Henry, I think so too. I'll head over there after school. Our last day is a half day, so I should be able to be back by Tuesday evening." "Take your time, Liz. I just want to make sure it's going to be just the way you like it. You come first." If she picked up on the few hints I dropped, She didn't put on a show. Her hand began to reach lower down my torso. How about making you feel better, my loving husband? Now I have to pause for a moment and say with relative certainty, I have never in my life turned down sex with Liz. Ever. She has always been the most beautiful woman in the world to me. Her looks, her mind, her personality, it was all gorgeous. And if I breathed, I was ready for sexual intercourse. But tonight, I was fighting to keep from letting a tear fall. I'm sorry, Liz. I'm completely exhausted. She stopped her caresses, and I heard a small sigh escape her lips. Of course you are, Henry. You need a good night's sleep. I love you. I love you too, I replied, dropping the word love and hoping it would go unnoticed. As I lay in the dark, I realized that my marriage was probably over. I couldn't just turn off my love for Liz, but I would never be able to trust her again. She had clearly found something missing in our relationship and made up for it with the help of another man. She lied to me and betrayed our family. She will never leave the house again, and I will never wonder where she is going or who she is dating. The thought of her being at the lake house 4 days a week without me did not suit me at all. Whoever he was at our lake house with my wife, probably in our marital bed where they slept. No, I couldn't stand that kind of disrespect. At 4:30 in the morning, I stopped tossing and turning. Liz was sound asleep when I showered, dressed, and headed to the office. Unusual for a Saturday, but not uncommon. She called me around 7 in the morning. I sent the phone to voicemail, which I rarely did. She texted, I hope you slept better and are on the mend. I love you. I didn't respond for an hour. Sorry, was working on an important last-minute order. I guess I'll see you tonight. Still tired. I turned on the heart-shaped emoji. It was the best thing I could do under the circumstances. Even though it was Saturday, I called Tom at 9 and asked him to start the divorce papers. Our state allowed adultery to be considered grounds for divorce, although it didn't matter in court. Nevertheless, I was not going to resort to irreconcilable differences. I told him to have everything ready by the following week. By 3 p.m., I had the name Kenneth Glenn Lester. The name seemed familiar, but there was no way I could identify it. Information from a Google search helped. Les had been the manager of the Lake Club for the past 3 years. He was in his early 30s, and in his 20s he did a couple years in jail for breaking and entering. I found out about him from Eric, who said he was a good guy who had done some stupid things when he was young but was now making the most of his second chance. From my limited communication, Les was always polite when we came to the club for dinner. He ran a good operation and was friendly with everyone. If something was wrong, Les made it right. As far as I could tell, he worked hard and smart. Apparently, he made an impression on my wife as he turned her into his whore. I guess she just couldn't resist a guy who was 12 years younger. It must have taken a big bite out of her ego. I didn't know how I was going to get through the next 2 days until Liz came down to the lake. My sadness was starting to turn to anger, and I was afraid I was going to explode on her. The good news was that Hank's high school baseball team had a few games that weekend, and I could attend late that night. Liz would likely be at one of them, if not both. Being together in public was much easier than being alone at home. I could work in the yard for an hour or two each day without arousing much suspicion. If Liz asked, I could always say I was doing more now so it wouldn't pile up when I started going to the lake house in a couple weeks. Sleep time would be another issue, but there was no way I was going to have sex with my cheating wife. I had no idea what Lester Boy might have handed her, and no way did I want sloppy seconds, no matter how much time passed. It was a difficult 2 days. Liz kept trying to make it up to me, and my excuses seemed unconvincing even to me. By Sunday evening, her frustration had turned to anger. Hopefully, by the time I get back from the lake house, you'll have your head out of your ass, she hissed at me before pulling all the blankets over her side of the bed. Good night. Monday, I got up and left early without saying goodbye. Hank texted me in the morning on the way to school. Dad, I heard Mom crying this morning. Is she okay? She's having a bit of a hard time right now, Hank, but I'm sure she'll be fine. Okay, love you, Dad. Love you, son. I put the phone down on the table and shed a few tears, too. How the hell did life get so messed up so fast? Later that afternoon, Liz sent a text. "Thanks for the warm and loving send-off. You are such an asshole right now." Drive safe, Liz. I'll see you soon. Remember that everything has to be to your liking. That's the most important thing. Whatever you say. Later that night, Hank was out with his buddies, and I turned on the live feed from the lake house that my FBI buddy had provided. Sure enough, in our living room, my loving wife and her lover, Lester the Rapist, as I aptly called him, were sitting on the couch, pressed tightly together. Her head rested on his shoulder, and he stroked her hair. "You don't think he knows, do you, Les?" "I don't see how he could know, baby. It's only been since last Thanksgiving, and only 8 times. We've been very careful. I don't see any way he could know." "I'm sure you're right, but he's been so weird since he came back last Thursday after the storm. He's even turned me down for sex 3 times. "Well, let me make up for my lack of attention." Lester smirked as his arm slung over her shoulder and around her chest. "Lester, please. I love the way you shake my world in bed, but I love my husband and our family. I have no intention of losing either of them. We both know this is just an affair. It's not love, and it never will be. For all I know, you're probably sleeping with at least 2 or 3 other wives." "You're right, Liz. I didn't mean to come across as anything other than an amusing distraction. However, I do care about you, and I don't want you to get hurt. By the way, if I may ask, am I the first guy you've slept with outside of marriage? I'm not judging, just curious." Liz froze for a moment. Holy shit, I thought. I didn't believe it could be any worse. There was another incident about 5 years ago. He was the new administrator in our district, and he was hot as hell. I don't know what got into me, but for some reason he picked me, and I didn't resist. We dated for about 6 months before I came to my senses. The truth is, I caught him having sex with the assistant principal at the high school. I slapped him so hard I think he saw stars for a couple days. Mike Jensen, I thought to myself. That damn slug was so smug around me, and now I know why. He fucked my whore wife. Remind me never to cross you, Liz. By the way, to be fair, I'm having sex with Julie Mitchell and Kim Ferguson. I know you don't care since we're just dating, but I want you to know that neither of us are infected with any STDs. I'm very careful. That's good to know, stud. I knew about Julie, but Kim was a bit of a surprise since she seems like a good girl. Well, since we both know it's just for fun, I'm worked up about my man neglecting me all week, so why don't you take me to bed, lover, and make a real woman out of me? I switched to the hidden camera in the bedroom and watched for about 10 minutes. That was 9 more minutes than I thought I could handle. They ripped each other's clothes off and got down to business. I turned it off, went to the bathroom, and swore. On Tuesday, I texted Tracy and told her that Hank and I needed to get together. At noon, I shared the ugly truth with my kids. It broke my heart, but I couldn't sugarcoat or pretend that what their mom was doing wasn't true. It made me sad, and I cried throughout the whole thing. They both cried too, but eventually said they would try to understand and support me. I told them I would give their mom a chance to confess to me on Wednesday night. If she did, we might have a small chance of pulling through. Obviously, they couldn't utter a word of what they know if they were talking to their mom. Tracy invited Hank to come visit her for the rest of the week, since his school was over, and she was taking classes at the beginning of the summer before coming home. I thought it was amazing of her to think of her little brother when her own heart was breaking. When Liz walked through the door around 4 p.m., I was already waiting for her in the living room. I sat in my leather chair and sipped a single-barrel Four Roses bourbon, leisurely. She glided across the room, dropping her purse and bag, intending to settle on my lap. I guessed that after fresh sex with Lester the Rapist, she was full and in a good mood for her asshole husband. I raised my hand to keep her at a distance. She saw the very serious expression on my face. "What's wrong, Henry?" I pointed to the couch. "Please sit down, Liz. Can I get you something to drink?" "No, I'm fine. Now please tell me, Henry, what happened? Oh my God, are the kids okay?" "The kids are fine, Liz. Nothing to worry about." I could see her relax a little at this pleasant news. Unfortunately, it was only going to get worse from here. "Liz, I'm going to give you one chance and one chance only. Is there anything you want to tell me, Liz? Or should I say, is there anything you're willing to tell me about, Liz?" I expect complete honesty from you, my dear wife, and in exchange for that, I will be completely honest with you. Please think carefully before you answer. Henry, what do I have to tell you? The lake house is fine, the kids are fine. Until a few days ago, you and I hadn't had a disagreement in months. Our sex life is usually very good. What do you want me to say? My hopes of having any way forward were crumbling by the second. Liz, I've been honest with you our entire marriage. I've never lied, cheated on you, or twisted the truth. I'm not perfect, far from it. I don't always get it right, but being completely open with you has always been one of my top priorities in our relationship. So for the last time, Liz, is there anything you need to be honest with me about? It was then that our marriage broke up. Honestly, Henry, I have no idea what you're looking for or what you're talking about. Tears began to well up in my eyes. I'm so terribly sad, Liz. I'm so sad that you have such contempt for me and our marriage. I guess I'll never know what I did to deserve your betrayal and infidelity. I thought we were together forever until we died. I know now that we weren't and never will be. Liz, I know all about your lovers, Ken Lester and Mike Jensen. Liz's face instantly turned ashy. Her mouth fell open and one of her hands closed over his. Oh, no, 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 she said in a barely audible whisper. Then louder, no, Henry, please let me explain. Oh, my God, what have I done? Please, Henry, they don't mean anything. Nothing. I only love you. Really, Liz, Mike Jensen was, as you put it, hot as hell. I think that's how you put it. And if memory serves me correctly, on Friday night you told Lester the rapist that you were worked up because your husband was neglecting you. So he needed to take you to bed and make a real woman out of you. Neither of those things sound like they mean anything to you. Like, when... Henry, how did you hear these things? Just my cheating wife. I set up surveillance equipment last week after I found your soiled swimsuit in a Ziploc bag that fell out of a dumpster during the storm. Your ruined blouse was also there, but I'm sure you can replace it and Lester can rip another one off your body while you devour each other. The DNA analysis was easy enough for obvious reasons. So you were spying on me and Lester? No, Liz. Everything was recorded, but I stopped watching. Liz was already crying, unable to meet my gaze. I didn't comfort her, didn't continue describing her sluts. I just sat in silence, under the blanket of pain that covered my heart like the darkest night. After a few minutes, she began to come to her senses. What can I do, Henry? How can I make things right? Please tell me we can make things right. I can't imagine my life without you, our home, our world together. Please, Henry, tell me there is a way out of this situation. There is a way out, Liz, but we're not together and we never will be. You took my trust, my love, my promise to be with you and only you, and heartlessly destroyed them. I cherished you, Liz, and you spit on my love. You mocked me as a man and as a husband. How could you think I would watch my wife sleep with other men? Do you think so badly of me? I'm sorry you made your choice, Liz. But now I've made mine. The only way forward is separately. With those words, I reached down, picked up the envelope, and tossed it on the couch next to her. On the outside of the envelope was written, Petition for Divorce. No, Henry, please, not this. We have to try to stay together for us and our children's sake, for the sake of your business and my teaching career. We can work through this. I can get professional help. We can get professional counseling. We're strong, Henry. We can weather this storm. Liz, let me be clear. I'm divorcing you on the grounds of adultery. You can tear up those papers and throw them away if you want, but if you do, I'll have my attorney make another copy and hand it to you at work in front of your students and coworkers. Please don't do this to Hank. No matter how badly you treat me, please at least spare your son. Henry, you love me too much to do this, and I love you too much to give up 24 years of marriage. Please work with me to find a solution that will save our marriage, our family. Liz, you have no idea what true love is. You've confused comfort and security with commitment. Love is an action, not a feeling. You love someone when you are faithful. Love is abandonment of all others. Love is caring for another person more than yourself. Tell me, Liz, how much you loved Tracy and Hank while you were sleeping with your lovers. How deeply interested were you in saving our marriage while you spread your legs for men whose only interest in you was sex? Your actions show you for who you really are, Liz. a narcissistic cheater, and a lying whore. I will fight you, Henry. I'm going to fight for the divorce to the last man. I'm not going to give up. I was beginning to tire of her self-righteousness as anger rose up inside me. Liz, you stupid bitch, you're starting to get on my nerves. Go ahead and fight if you want to. Why don't you start by calling your kids and telling them what's going on? Try to convince them that you love me and our family. Do you know where Hank is right now? He's at school with Tracy, probably crying because his family is about to break up. What have you done, Henry? What have you told our kids? I took a deep breath. The truth, Liz. I just told them the truth, that you had 2 sexual affairs with 2 different men, one about 5 years ago and one that is ongoing. I was honest with them, Liz, which I can't say about you. I didn't tell them to hate you or to give up their relationship with you. I told them that if you came home and honestly confessed what you had done, there was a small chance that our marriage would survive. But today you showed yourself in all your glory, Liz. You showed that you care more about yourself than you do about us. What happens next, Henry? I hope we can get a quiet divorce, no fuss and no fuss. I'd love to leave you with nothing, but that's hardly possible in today's courts. But I'll sue the school district and the lake club. They will probably go nowhere, but I want some people to be held accountable. You were the main culprit, but there were others who acted to destroy our marriage. You had accomplices, and I want them to pay. Financially, you'll probably fare better than me, at least for the first few years. Custody is a moot point since Hank will be leaving home for college before it's even settled. I'm not moving out, I don't care if you move out or not. I'm staying in the master bedroom and you can move into the spare room or go live with Lester the rapist, I don't care. But if you fight me over this, Liz, if you try to play the victim, I'll trash the tapes of the last 2 days everywhere, starting with your parents, then your siblings, your friends, your co-workers, and even your pickleball league on Wednesday. I'm not a bad guy, I didn't sleep around or ruin my marriage, and I'm not going to try to cover for you. I could tell by the look on her face that she had finally realized what she had done. There was deep pain written all over her face. I'm so sorry, Henry. I know you're very hurt by what I did, but can I ask you to hold me for a few minutes? I feel so lost. I stood up and started pacing around the room, then stopped. I'm sorry, Liz, but I'll never touch you again. Epilogue. Liz resisted for a long time, but in the end it was inevitable. The divorce went through virtually 50-50ths. Henry Tom's lawyer was right. You can be lecherous with your spouse, and the court will reward your infidelity and punish the victim. Fortunately for Henry, the children were adults, so there was no alimony. His company was thriving, so even with the compensation, he would be fine. Liz wanted the lake house to remain in their joint ownership. Henry refused. Eventually, they agreed to put it in a trust for Tracy and Hank, 50-50 for each of them. Maybe someday Henry would return there to play with his grandchildren, but he doubted it. The legal battle went nowhere, but Lester was fired and kicked out of town by angry club members. Husbands Julie Mitchell and Kim Ferguson got a small portion of the tape where Lester admits to sleeping with them. Both couples divorced. One night, Mike Jensen was badly beaten leaving the gym where he was working out. 3 weeks later, it happened again. He decided to move out. No one was connected to the attacks. Henry and Liz sold the house. Both live in condominiums on opposite ends of town. Henry met a girl he sees often but is still shy. There are rumors of divorce, and Liz has a reputation for being malleable, so she's trying to keep a low profile for now. Tracy and Hank see both of their parents, though their relationship with their mother is still strained. Every time a tornado siren sounds, Henry smiles sadly and shrugs his shoulders. Liz sits down and cries. It took a tornado to unleash a real storm.